on today's StoryBeat.
The words that I was saying to myself whenever I doubted, I would say, why not me? You go into these stores and you see all these New York Times bestsellers and you think, oh, I can never do that. And then I started saying, why not me? Why not me? They all started somewhere. They all started with their first idea, first chapter, their first editor. They did it, I can too.
This is StoryBeat with Steve Cuden, a podcast for the creative mind. StoryBeat explores how masters of creativity develop and produce brilliant works that people everywhere love and admire. So join us as we discover how talented creators find success in the worlds of imagination and entertainment. Here now is your host, Steve Cuden.
Thanks for joining us on StoryBeat. We're coming to you from the Steel City, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My guest today, Kit Karson, is the author of a series of books, the Anderson Chronicles, a Sheriff Elliott Mystery, which currently comprises 5 novels, including Land Grab, Innocence Slain, Justice Rendered, Nefarious Intent, and Savage Malice. All 5 take place in a small Montana town. Interestingly, as prolific as Kit is as an author, writing is not her principal occupation. Born and raised in the mountains of western Montana, Kit spent her childhood traipsing around forests, streams, and meadows, either on foot or horseback, exploring, fishing, and shooting. After earning an undergraduate degree in medical technology and professional biology, she ultimately earned a Master of Science from the University of North Dakota. Subsequently, Kit spent more than 3 decades under a microscope as a medical technologist and lab manager for various medical, hospital, and healthcare facilities. She's currently a laboratory director at Granite County Medical Center. I've read Nefarious Intent, the 4th book in the Anderson Chronicles mystery series, and can tell you it's an engrossing, page-turning thriller that kept me wanting to know how the intricate puzzle would unravel. If you like mysteries set outside of urban landscapes, I highly recommend Kit's books to you. So for all those reasons and many more, it's a truly great honor for me to welcome the outstanding mystery novelist, Kit Karson, to StoryBeat today. Kit, thanks so much for joining me.
Well, thanks for having me.
It's a great pleasure to have you. So let's go back in time a little bit. At what age did you first start to recognize words and writing and books and that sort of thing? How old were you?
I can't remember that far back. I've been an avid reader my entire life, so probably since I learned how to read.
All the way back to the very beginning of time then in
Yes.
your life. And then at what age did you start to write?
Well, I wrote, I'm sure, all through school. And looking back, I remember people asking me to write things for them, but it didn't dawn on me that someday I would be a writer or that was a thing for me.
So you weren't thinking about writing as a kid,
No, not at all.
except in, I assume, school reports and that sort of thing. But
Right.
you weren't concentrating on that as something you would be able to do with your life. And so what then influenced you ultimately to start writing and to write books, not something else, not poetry or screenplays or whatever? Why books?
Well, I had this want. I wanted to write. And actually, a couple decades ago, I started to write a psychological thriller,
Mm.
but it just wasn't a good time in my life. I had a full-time job and 3 young children and, not a lot of support. So I put that away. And then when I went to get my master's degree, I had to write a lot of scientific papers. And I did really well on them. And I loved doing it. I loved the research and the writing and the putting the words together. And I thought, I really love to write.
Hmm. So at that point, and you were well into your working life at that point.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
You weren't in school, and you didn't go to school to get training as a writer, did you?
No, no.
You're self-taught.
Well, yeah, I took one class, like writing 101 in college because you had to, and I did really well in it. Got an A plus. So,
And so that was at least enough of a trigger for you to say to yourself, it's something I can do.
oh, yes, yes.
Got it. So after all these years as a medical technologist, what led you to start writing mysteries in particular?
Because I think because I am a That's my favorite genre. That's what I read all the time are mysteries.
Hmm.
And so at first I thought I was going to read a cozy mystery because I'd been reading some series that, you fall in love with these characters and I thought this is what I want to do. I want to write a series with these characters that people, after they read a book, they can't wait for the next one to come out.
A few weeks ago, people will have heard an episode on this show in which we have a cozy mystery that we talk about with two authors, Wanda Brunstetter and Martha Bolton. I don't know if you're familiar with their work,
I'm not,
but they
no.
write Amish mysteries.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, and they're called cozy Amish mysteries. So
Hmm.
I find that interesting that you also are interested in cozy mysteries, or that's something that comes to you.
Well, that's what I thought I was going to write because my books are very, very clean. There's not cussing or that obligatory sex scenes or anything like that. They're very clean. So after I wrote the first one, I was struggling to figure out where to put it in. It didn't fit as a cozy.
Because it's a little bit harder edged.
It's not a cozy.
No.
So finally, the woman who does my designing and formatting and everything, she told me that. She said, it's not a cozy. It doesn't fit there. So, I'm finding my way.
Well, that's, I think all of us in the arts are
Mm.
finding our way in some fashion. Do you think of yourself now after doing this for a while? How many years have you been writing books at this point?
Two.
Two. You've written 5 books in 2 years.
Five. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah,
Wow, that's
actually the
impressive.
fifth one went into pre-release on the same day that the first one was published. So
Oh, that's really impressive. And you're still working full time as a medical technologist, right?
I am. Hmm.
That's you must not get much sleep.
I get really frustrated now that I have to do all this marketing and promoting and everything. It's really hard to get the writing done.
So if the listeners should understand what's going on here, Kit publishes your own books. You're self-published, correct?
Correct. Hmm.
And so you do a lot of the legwork by yourself. You don't have anyone really helping you. I assume you have an editor, yes?
Hmm. Yes, correct.
And
Hmm.
and do you have someone helping you design the covers?
Yeah, she also designs the inside. She does all the formatting for me, and she uploads it onto the sites for me. So,
Got it.
yeah.
That's one big burden off your
Oh,
shoulders.
huge, huge burden. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, indeed. But here's the trick. Even if you were publishing through a major publisher,
Hmm.
you'd still be promoting yourself.
That's what I hear. So this way I do it myself and they don't get a cut.
That's correct. They don't get a cut,
Hmm.
which I think is an excellent way to go. And by the way, your covers look fantastic. When you look at them on Amazon or wherever they're available, they look terrific. They look like, it's a big publishing house is doing it.
Oh, thank you.
Well done on that.
I'll pass that on.
Indeed. So, what did you do to learn to write books then? If you are untrained and did you read books on how to write books or
No,
what'd you do?
I have written a few like newspaper articles and like I said before, writing the scientific papers, just you learn to organize your thoughts.
Hmm. I would think you'd be really good at organizing your thoughts. You'd have to be.
I am, yeah. So I think that helped a lot. And yeah, just little things like that. I would write short stories.
Do you think being a medical technologist then has been a major influence on the way that you create the books?
I think being organized and being able to multitask, and I've always worked in small rural labs where I was there by myself doing everything.
Hmm. Hmm. Do you think of yourself now? You've been doing it for 2 years, which is, I'm surprised it's that fast. That's really impressive. Do you think of yourself now as more of a writer, or do you still think of yourself primarily as a medical technologist?
Both, because I have a job where I work week on, week off. In fact, I just got home this morning from I call it my job that pays the bills. And then, so my week off is not really a week off. It's where I deal with writing and marketing and
Welcome to the arts.
exactly, yeah.
Do you enjoy the writing more than the lab work, or do you enjoy the lab work more than the writing?
I like them both. I think after all these decades of doing the lab work, if I could just write, I would,
Hmm.
if I could leave that job.
Well, that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to figure out how to sell enough books that it becomes your full-time occupation.
Yeah, that would be great. But I know many writers have a job that pays the bills. So,
That is correct. Many writers, especially of books,
yeah.
can't pay their bills off the books. It's, in fact, the majority it's that
Mhm.
way. It's a shame, but that's sort of the way the business is set up.
Mhm.
I am curious, in the lab reports that you file, do you ever think of yourself as a storyteller in the lab?
No.
No.
So the lab, things have to be exact, and
Hmm.
we don't make stuff up. So no, it's a completely different thing. It's very,
Hmm.
very scientific.
Would you say that throughout your life you've been a people watcher?
I'm not so much a people watcher as a people analyzer.
Oh, how does that work?
I overanalyze everything. And so, yes, every little thing. Like, say, people that I work with, or friends, or go to church with, or just people that I come in contact with my life, and things that they do, the way they react to things. I analyze, like, what made them act like that? You
Hmm.
know, what made them say something like that or do something like that? And so I think that really helps my writing, because all of my characters, I take each character separately and I analyze who they are, why they do things, how they would act in any situation.
Do you call it character studies when you're doing that? What do you call it?
Well, I never have. I just call it, overanalyzing people.
Overanalyzing people. And so
Yeah.
you're basing, I'm going to guess, most of your characters on people you've met or a combination of people you've met. Is that accurate?
Not purposely always, but yeah, I sometimes, if I'm having trouble getting someone in my head, I try to think, okay, who do I know who's somewhat like that character, or who I want that character to be?
Hmm.
And then that helps me in the writing. It's like, oh, okay, that's who that is.
And do you think of your characters in three dimensions?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
And that's why they come off so wonderfully. They're not cardboard or stiff. They're like real people.
No, when I'm writing a character, I'm in that character.
You actually project yourself into that character.
Correct. Yeah.
Are you seeing scenes unfold in your head as you're writing?
Oh, all the time. Actually, I write a lot in my head, and
Hmm.
sometimes I'm reading through stuff that I've written and realize, oh, wait a minute, I didn't write that scene down. In my head, I wrote it, but I forgot to write it on paper.
Wow.
So that does happen.
So you've used your imagination and everything is played out for you, but you've yet to go through the act of putting it on paper
Correct. Yeah.
or on a screen. Are you writing on a screen or are you writing longhand?
I write on a screen.
On
Yeah.
a screen.
Hmm.
So that's the always what they call the tyranny of the page or the tyranny of the screen, whatever you want to call it, that you have this blank thing that you have to fill in.
Hmm.
But it sounds to me like once you have your imagination going, it's really a matter of reporting from your head onto the screen.
Correct. Yeah. And then it's like, oh, yeah, I imagined that and then got distracted, maybe had to go to work for a week, forgot to write it down. So,
Is your memory good enough that you can recall them or do you forget things?
yeah, I usually can remember the basics. Sometimes
Hmm.
if it's, sometimes I write them down on my notebook, so I don't forget, things that I think, oh, I'll never forget that little detail because it's kind of complex.
And, I'm always curious when authors record things for memory. You use a notebook, you don't use your cell phone, you don't use a recorder. It's on paper.
It's on paper.
It's on paper. And
I have a little notebook for each book. Yeah.
got it. Well, hang on to those because they may become extremely valuable someday. You never know.
Oops.
So let's talk about Nefarious Intent, which is the only one of the five that I've read.
Hmm.
And I was delighted to read it. So tell us a little bit more about the Anderson Chronicles series in general. Take us through, brief overview of the five books and how did your first one, like, how did that come about, Land Grab?
Well, they're all based in small town Western Montana, and it's actually based on a real town. I call it something different, but it's based on an old mining town that is now, as I describe in the book, it's more of a tourist town, and that's how they saved the town, is becoming a tourist town. So anyway, it's just all these the sheriff and his deputies, and all the quirky townspeople, and a murder happens, and they have to figure out what happened. And lots of times the townspeople are involved in the solving of the murder. So that's kind of cool, I think.
And all of your books are involving some kind of a murder.
Correct. Yeah.
Are you thinking about doing things other than murders, like extortion or fraud or something like that?
Well, I think those things will come into it, but usually a murder happens. So I try to mix
Hmm.
up the who's murdered, male, female, good guy, bad guy, the reasons. I'll go like the seven deadly sins, and I'll think, okay, I haven't done that one yet. How about envy? How about greed? How about lust or gluttony? Or yeah, so I really try to mix it up. So every book is different. And I also try to pick things that are important to like ranchers and people in these small towns.
Hmm.
Like book 5, Savage Malice, is about cattle mutilation,
Wow.
which is a big deal actually.
I imagine it's a huge deal.
Yeah, cows are expensive, so every cattle that is mutilated, especially if the bull, that's a huge monetary loss.
So forgive my city dwellers mentality. When I
Hmm.
hear cattle mutilation, my brain immediately goes to UFOs, which is
Hmm.
how people think of, at least in the city, they think of cattle mutilation as
Hmm.
UFOs. But there's a lot of actual people mutilating cattle, aren't there?
There's 5 different theories about these cows that have been mutilated, and supposedly it's never been solved. One is UFOs, one is like satanic cults. They think they're drinking the blood.
Mm.
One is people doing it, like other ranchers, neighbors who are competitors, predators, like say wolves, coyotes, and what is the fifth one? I can't remember at the moment.
Well, that's four more than I knew. So,
Government conspiracies, like the government's coming in and killing the cows to suck the blood or something, it's
wow, okay.
I know.
More conspiracies than we can handle, that's for sure.
And I covered all of them in that book.
Oh, you did
I did,
in
yeah.
Land Grab.
No, actually in Savage Malice, the
Oh, in
fifth book.
Savage Malice. Got it.
Yeah.
In your fifth book. Okay, so what then inspires you to go to a specific story? What are you looking for when you're trying to dream up a new story to tell?
Well, people give me ideas, they'll be talking about a certain thing. And so Land Grab was about these Russian mafia. And I've had a few people say, oh, that's not realistic. It is. There are Russian mafia people around here
In Montana.
in Montana. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And they are trying to, and so someone I know was telling me about this. So I thought, oh, good story. Anyway, they're trying to get a hold of this land that they want to develop into a high-end resort, and the land is not available. It's locked up in a family trust. And so they think they can bully and murder people into getting that land. And, you'll have to read it to find out what happens.
A good tease. I like that a lot.
Hmm.
So your stories have been referred to as mountain mysteries, which is
Hmm.
accurate, I believe.
Hmm.
And everything takes place in this small town in western Montana. And
Hmm.
you've been a Montanan. Your family's been there for a long time, I assume.
Yeah, 5 generations.
Is that all? Five
Yeah,
generations.
I'm number 5, so there's, 6 and 7 out there too.
So, what is it about the state of Montana that makes it so compelling for you to tell stories about?
Well, I think Montana has an aura of mystery and intrigue, and it's a beautiful, beautiful area on top of that.
That's for sure.
Yeah, and it's covered with gullies and old mine shafts. There's a lot of places to hide a body in Montana. Yeah. Not that I've ever done that.
No, I hope you haven't. But it's
No.
very convenient for a mystery writer who writes about murders.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah. Book 2, Innocence Slain, kind of dwells on that. I probably shouldn't say any more than that, but about places to hide bodies.
Places to hide bodies.
Hmm.
That pulls you right in. You got to know where the bodies are going to be buried. And
Mm-hmm.
so you obviously live in that part of the world. So this is
I do.
familiar territory with you. You still, I assume, have to do research for your books, but probably less of it than if you didn't live there.
I don't have to do so much research on the area, but I do a lot of research on the subject. Like Justice Rendered there was a lot of antiques and stuff. I knew nothing about antiques.
Hmm.
So I had to know what I was talking about when was discussing the antiques. Probably Savage Malice, the one about cattle mutilation. I had to do a ton of research on that, all the different theories. And actually, some rancher families in this area found out that I was writing about that subject. And one morning, they called me up and said, "Hey, we had three last night. Do you want to see them?"
Oh,
And
wow.
so I met them at their pasture, and I saw three mutilated cows in person.
And unsolved. Nobody knows how or
Unsolved.
why.
Yeah, they had no idea who did it.
How often does this happen?
As in my research, it was really heavy in like the late 60s. A lot of it was going on. I don't think it happens as often now. So those ranchers, they said they'd had 18 in like 10 years. Yeah. And then the family ranch, my original family ranch is still run by my cousins, and they had one this last spring, and the cow was already gone, but they took me down and showed me where it happened. So I use that site when I'm describing the area where it happened in that book.
All right, so clearly your stories, as I said in the opening, your stories take place not in an urban setting.
Oh.
They're out in the exterior, in the wide open plains and in the mountains.
Mhm.
And so those are obvious differences. What do you think the big differences are other than that in the way that you tell stories in a small town versus a lot of the classic mysteries that take place in, concrete jungles?
Well, I think, and I'm getting this from law enforcement too, like the local sheriffs. And I did discuss it with a guy who is retired now and lives in this area, but he was like a police chief in somewhere around Denver, I think it was. And he said, the way we solve crimes and things is completely different than in small towns.
How so?
Well, like one story, and I got this straight from the sheriff in the little town where my books take place. A cell phone was stolen from the local bar. And yet there's like, 1,000 people in this whole town area. It's very small. So a cell phone was stolen. The sheriff pinged the phone and they knew exactly where it was. They knew the person who had stolen it. He was on their radar. So they go to his house and say, "Hey, we know you stole this phone. Give it back, no questions asked." And so, of course, the guy initially, "Oh, no, I didn't." And the sheriff said, "No, we pinged it to your house. We know you did it." And so eventually he gave the phone back, no questions asked, no charges. So I don't think things like that would happen in a big city.
I agree. I don't think they would happen in a big
It's
city
like,
that way.
they know the perps and they know the victims and
It's impossible to hide in a small town, isn't it?
oh, it is. So we think we know everything about everybody else. You can't go to the grocery store without people knowing that you went to the grocery store.
Hmm.
But everybody has secrets, that maybe you don't know about. Like I knew this woman once who was an alcoholic, but nobody knew, even her best friends. And she used to go down in her basement to drink until one time she went down there and I can't remember, she started a fire or something. And they got her out, but it's like everybody found out that she had been going down to her basement to drink and that she was an alcoholic. So people do have secrets, even though you think you know everything about everybody. There are secrets. There's like say the pillar of the community who goes home every night and beats up his wife. Maybe nobody knows that.
Well, I think that there's something to be said in any book, script, whatever, in relationships, even people that are intimate with one another, they're married, they've been living
Mhm.
together for years, even they have secrets from one another.
Oh, yeah. Hmm.
So it's impossible to get inside of someone's brain, at least at this point in our lives. There may come a day when technology steps up and is able to go right inside your head and get into your thoughts, but that's
Gosh,
not
let's
there
hope
so
not.
far. I
Let's
hope
hope
not too. But it's kind of scary because you're starting to see
not.
some of that happening in the world of technology where they're trying to um, invade our thoughts, which I think is not a good thing. But in a small town, there's more intensity toward knowing what others do. I would
Hmm.
assume there's also more interest in what your neighbors are doing
Oh,
than
yeah.
in a larger city.
Yeah. Who needs to watch soap operas? When you live in a small town, you're surrounded by it.
How many are in the town you live in? Is it 1,000 or is it more?
Oh, the town I don't live where I work. Actually, the town I live in is less than 300.
Less than 300.
Yeah.
You really know each other's business then, don't you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I don't even live in town. I live up on the mountain. So,
But they all know where you live and they
oh, they
all
do.
know
Hmm.
what you do when you come into town, where you go and all those things, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. The post office is like the community meeting place.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, all right, describe for us what the challenges are for you to come up with a story and a plot. What are those challenges for you like?
I haven't so far had a lot of trouble with that.
You're lucky.
Usually, before I even finish one book, I've already know what I'm going to write the next book about.
Wow.
And so then it's like, oh, I want to get done with this book so I can get started on the next one.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
So you don't have any kind of writer's block ever. You just keep plowing ahead.
Yeah, I think the main maybe writer's block I have is sometimes once in a while I have a character that gosh, what are they going to look like? The hardest character I did was Sheriff Elliott, the main
Well,
character.
tell us about him. Why was that the most challenging for you, and what did you do to come up with him?
Well, maybe it was because he was the main character and I wanted to get him right.
Hmm.
And so I went through a gamut of first he was blonde and then he was dark haired. And yeah, it finally just fell together. And it wasn't really even his personality. That's what gets me is trying to, what do people look like? Not always, most of them just fall into place, but once in a while.
Is he clearly in your head at this point? Do you know exactly what he looks like?
Oh yeah, yeah.
At this point, you know him as well as probably you know yourself, where you can you know what he's going to do when he gets out of bed in the morning. You know what he's going to do when he gets in his car, et cetera,
Hmm.
et cetera.
Hmm. And it's a lot of fun when I read comments and reviews from readers and how they see the characters.
Because it's totally different than the way you do.
Not really, but once in a while they see even more than I w expected them to see. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I do know what you mean. This is one of the fascinating things about being a writer and then having readers. And
Hmm.
that is that you have it in your head how a story unfolds, how the characters look and
Hmm.
act, and how things smell and sound and so on. And
Hmm.
you write that down to the best of your ability. And then someone else reads it and they have to interpret it through their head. And it can come out quite different.
Exactly. And so sometimes they might make a comment about how they see this character, and they might not have it exactly how I see it, but that's okay.
Well, as they say, the greatest time machine that's ever been invented is a book, because someone can write a book 3,000 years ago and we can read
Hmm.
it today and know what this person was thinking.
Or think we do.
Yeah, well, exactly. We think we do, but we're at least getting some sense of what they were
Hmm.
thinking. We're getting words of some kind, assuming they're not translated poorly or something like that. So, what kind of a crime solver is he? How does he do his job?
He's bright, but it starts out the series, it's a small town and he doesn't have a lot of experience in solving murders. So there's a lot of self-doubt, questioning, gosh, can I really do this? And they always do, but throughout the books, he has such wonderful deputies and the townspeople. He's really good with people. He's kind, insightful, so he's the kind of sheriff that shows up at your house and you invite him in for a cup of tea and a cinnamon roll because he makes people feel comfortable, even if they are guilty. He,
He's the law, but he's not a mean-spirited
No, no,
lawman.
no. Very kind spirit, very gentle. He's the kind that lets someone off sometimes. You know,
Hmm.
it's like, gee, do I really need to take this person in? Like that story I told you about this cell phone. They should have, I guess, in law enforcement world, should have taken that guy in and charged him. But the sheriff said, no, just give it back.
So they're making a judgment based on, I guess, the crime itself and how bad it is. I
Hmm.
think if this person had committed a murder,
Yeah.
they would bring him in. But this theft of a cell phone, it's like, okay, no harm, no foul, except you've done something wrong.
Yeah. He's kind of a ne'er-do-well that was always in minor trouble for something. And yeah, he was probably down in the bar and saw this phone sitting on the counter or the bar and didn't know whose it was. Who know? Who knows? I don't know. But he just opportunity, crime of opportunity. And they were willing to look the other way. And maybe that's easier for them. They don't have to do the paperwork.
Like, sure,
So,
exactly.
yeah.
I find it kind of interesting that you chose to write about a sheriff and not a medical technologist who solves crimes.
Well, I thought, gosh, do I have enough there to be interesting to people? And people have told me, oh, yeah, there is. I have coworkers that say, oh, the next book, you need to write it in the hospital.
Well, I'm going to assume you've come across in your career some pretty strange things that you had to figure out,
Yeah,
and there's your story.
yeah. Lab techs are kind of the nobody knows really what we do. We're kind of
I
the
don't.
we're the unappreciated in the back room kind of people, but we solve the mysteries.
Indeed. And you've already said that you write repeatedly about one murder after another,
Hmm.
and that's a sort of a running theme in the books themselves. But you also have the theme, I think, of abuse in your books. Where did that come from? Why did you set on that?
I think it just comes naturally because as human beings, we treat each other so badly. There's so much abuse in the world, and I guess it just breaks my heart when I see it. I see a lot of it in the hospital, the way people treat each other, husbands and wives and children to their parents and parents, children, grandparents. I mean, it's just there's so much abuse in the world. So I think that's it. I've seen a lot of it.
All right, so now you have now written 5 books. Are you have more planned, I assume?
I started book 6.
You started book 6.
Yeah.
And when you wrote Land Grab, did you know it was going to be a series at that point?
Yes, that was my plan.
That was the plan, was to write multiple
Hmm.
stories with these characters.
And I'll just keep writing till I run out of ideas, or maybe I think people are bored of the characters or something.
I think if you just keep doing the way you're doing it, I don't think you're going to run out of any of it. So, uh, good on you. I, do you think that your work as a microbiologist and a medical technologist leaks into the actual storytelling in some way? Not just the research, not the meticulous that we talked about, but into the storytelling itself.
Gosh, I don't know that it does. My husband's a provider at the hospital, and so all the medical stuff I get straight from him, so I know it's legit. So between the two of us, we know so much about pathology. So there you go. I know all the pathology stuff, and
Hmm.
yeah, that does come in.
That's what I was thinking, because
Hmm.
you're solving crimes that require some kind of, I don't know, some kind of detail in terms of the medical stuff.
Hmm.
And you would know that quite well.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Well, I think that's very helpful. All right, so let's talk about your actual process. Where do you begin most books, with plot or character?
I am a pantser. I do not plot anything out. I just make it up as I go.
That's wild. You don't outline.
Nope, not at all. Nope.
Wow.
To me, someone says outline, and I'm just like, oh, please just shoot me. I don't want to do that.
I think many writers think, please just shoot me, but they feel like they have to go through it. As a writer myself, I have to have an outline. I can't
Really?
do it without it. I can't do what you're talking about doing, which I find fascinating.
Yeah, I just get the general idea of what the theme is going to be about. And then I start writing.
And you don't even know what the characters are going to be or where it's going at all.
No, of course I know the main characters now really well, but no, I
Yes.
just make the characters up as I go along. And
And you don't know how it's going to end.
no, I made the mistake. It was in book 3, Justice Rendered. I had decided in my mind who the murderer was going to be towards the beginning. And so I wrote the book, but the problem was since I knew who the murderer was going to be, I gave it away. So I had to rearrange, the chapters and stuff that so my readers couldn't guess it. And after that, I thought, you know what? I can't know who the murderer is going to be, or I'll give it away.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Well, there's one extremely famous television series called Columbo, in which the audience knows at the beginning who the murderer is or the bad guy.
Yeah. Yeah. To me, that's kind of boring. It's like, you know who did it. Where's the puzzle?
Well, it isn't so much a puzzle as the joy of watching someone like a Peter Falk as
Mhm.
Columbo figure out how this came together.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's unusual. That's not the normal way we do it. The way you do it is more typical in sense of we don't know who the murderer is.
Yeah. Well, people like to put together the clues and.
And so as you're going, you're discovering characters just literally as you're writing.
hmm Yeah, and I'll lay out several different possibilities. I'll have several in my head, but I don't decide till the end who actually did it and how they did it.
All right, so you've written 5 books in 2 years or more, I guess, or something like that.
Yeah.
How fast are you working? How long does it take you to finish a book?
Well, the first 4 were really fast. I did those in a year.
Oof.
The last book, it took me a full year from when I published number 4 to get that one published. And I think it was just because, well, there was so much research with that one, with the cattle mutilations, and I wanted to get it right. But also now I'm so deep into marketing and, well, work's kind of been kicking my butt too. We've been really busy. So that one took a whole year. I really don't want book 6 to take a full year. I'd like to get it out, like early spring or, by Christmas time.
I don't know anyone that has a better excuse than you. I mean, my goodness, it's you're working full time at 2 jobs.
Yeah.
That's crazy. How much rewriting do you do?
Not a ton. I'm kind of a perfectionist, so I fix it as I go. And
Really?
yeah, so when I write, it's probably for some people maybe the third round, I try to get it right as I go. And so I do have to go back and
So how does it work then? Do you write, how many pages a day do you write when you're writing?
a good day is about, 1,500 words when I actually
1,500 words.
get sat down and have a good uninterrupted day of writing.
That's probably 6 to 8 pages, something like that.
Yeah, I don't know how many pages or words or 1,500 words. Yeah.
Got it. So when you have finished those 1,500 words, do you go back and look at them again the next day, or are they so meticulously written as you've written them, you don't even look back?
No, I read them out loud to my husband. And so that's how we find a lot of mistakes.
So he's your main beta tester then?
He is. Yeah, he is. And then when the book's all done, we'll read the whole thing. We just sit down like one day and read the whole thing. And that's where we pick up like timing issues or, things like, oh, that doesn't quite work.
So you can't 100% tell as you're writing that it all works. You need to go back and at least go through it once at the end of the day.
Yeah, yeah. I read as I go along and, then I'll read. Sometimes if he's not around, I might read him a couple chapters at a time, but
Hmm.
yeah. And then of course when I send it to my editor, she'll come back with things, like gosh, lots of times she'll say, "Oh, I'd really like to see another scene with this person in there." And so I'll write another scene, another chapter, or being away from it, she picks up things that we don't. We're a little too close to it sometimes.
Well, that's the old you're too close to the forest for the trees,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. And she lives in a city, a big city. She's a city girl. So she, to me, sees another perspective that we don't. And so I just think that makes it a better book having her edited with her city personality and perception.
And how frequently does she point stuff out that you just didn't even consider at all? You just didn't, it went right by you.
Um, Usually every book there's things. Yeah. Once in a while, like she's the one that pointed out in book number 3 that she said, "Oh, I knew who did it right away. We've got to fix this." And so it wasn't so much rewriting the whole story, but rearranging chapters. I knew instinctively that the timing was off, but I didn't know how to fix it. And she did. She said, "This is what you need to do."
And have you ever gotten notes from her or anyone else that threw you for a loop?
Hmm.
Or did you always know how to solve it?
I no, I Yeah, that was the only one that, like I said, I kind of knew the timing was off, but I didn't know what to do. And she's the expert. She told me what to do, and I redid it and sent it back to her. So every once in a while, she'll say, "Oh, you know what? That comment or that how that character behaved or acted doesn't go with their personality."
That's interesting. So they're picking up on something that you've written that just didn't fit what their perception of what you wrote is.
Yeah, she'll say, "Oh, that's not the way that character would say something." And I go back, and it's like, you're right. That was a little harsh.
So I'm fascinated by the fact that you don't know where you're going as you're going in a mystery novel of all kinds of things. Because
Mhm.
usually a mystery novel, you've got to kind of know where you're going to. But you don't do it that way, which I think is fantastic and very interesting. I'm going to ask you a question that I ask lots of artists, not just
Mhm.
writers, and I'm always interested in the answer. What for you then, as you're conceiving these books, what for you makes a good story good?
Well, in the mystery stories, number one is you can't give away the ending. The ending has to be a surprise. And if the ending is given away, then I've blown it. That's number one right there.
I think that's true. You will have blown it if you've
Hmm.
given it away.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than, as an audience member, to know who did it.
It's boring.
Yeah,
I've read books like that I just stop reading. It's like I might go to the very end and read and like, oh, okay, yep, that's how it ended. I don't finish the book.
I have to imagine you don't feel a lot of pressure, or maybe you do. Do you feel pressure as you're writing? Like you've got to finish by a certain time?
Yeah, I kind of do. I put a lot of that pressure on myself though, because I don't work for a company. I work for me.
Hmm.
But I feel like, oh, I wanted to do 2 books a year. And so this last book took me a full year. So I felt a lot of pressure. Now I'm feeling pressure. I really got to get going with book 6. I've started it, but
And you already have started it, so
Mhm.
you somewhat know where you're headed, but you don't know where you're headed on this one either.
No, I know who's gonna die, but I don't know who's gonna kill them or why or
Have any other writers reached out to you, or have you reached out to other writers to get advice for anything?
not really, no.
That's remarkable.
Yeah.
That you're sort of in your own little universe, which is amazing. Do you think there are things that novelists should do in general to make stories work?
I guess it depends on what you're writing. Like I have a friend who her career has been writing for Harlequin romances, and I've heard straight from her that there's an outline that you follow and you don't diverge from that. She'll bid on outlines, and the company will send her that outline already written out, and then she just fills in the
Who writes the outlines?
I did the company. I don't know. I guess it's like a formula, and they come up with the basic, this is what's going to happen in this book. And then she just fills it in and gets paid a certain amount for filling in the book.
I have to guess that's something that wouldn't interest you at all.
No, I don't. I don't read romance books.
No, I'm talking about the formula part of it. If somebody gave you the formula to your Sheriff Elliott stories, you would say, no, you're going to go as you go.
Exactly. I think that makes it more interesting. As when people say, "Oh, I just would never guess that." Or that's what I like to hear.
All right, so you are a self-published author. We've already talked about
Hmm.
that. how much of your time do you wind up spending in that effort? Now, we know somebody else is actually putting the book through the meat grinder of the
Hmm.
publishing part of it for you. But then once you have your book, like you're sitting here talking to me, we're talking about your book,
Hmm.
how much time and energy do you then need to spend to promote yourself?
Oh, way too much. So I'm not very good at social media.
Hmm.
But I also have a promoter person who's trying to help me get better at it. And so lately I've been spending a lot of time trying to, I know you're supposed to post more than twice a year. So I've really been trying.
Yes, more than twice a year is probably recommended.
One of the biggest problems with that is I have been banned from Facebook for life.
What?
I know. No, I didn't do anything. They will not let me on. I have
Why?
tried. They say I'm not a real person.
What?
I know. It's bizarre. I have sent in my driver's license. They will not let me on. And so what
That,
I know, it's weird.
and so they've banned you for life?
Yeah, they said, don't even try. We won't let you on. I have no idea, not a clue.
That's not cool.
I know. So one of my characters in the book, if you remember Nancy May,
Hmm.
she is a real person and just as goofy as I write her, one of my very best friends. So she is going to be 80 this year.
Wow.
So yeah, she's just a kook. So she had a Facebook that she didn't even remember having. Like at one point, someone might have opened it for, started it for her. So I have taken control of her Facebook. I have a page, a Kit Carson page on her Facebook. So I've started to build it up. The bad thing is that I can't get friends myself. I have to get friends for her first. And so when I try to do friends, nobody knows who she is. So, but I'm working on it.
So a suggestion would be is that you need to go out and start friending a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And that way they go, "Who are you?" And then maybe they'll friend you back.
yeah, yeah. That's kind of what I've been doing. So I used to live in the town where she lives now, and so a lot of those people know me, and I started with them. But people I grew up with, they have no idea who she is. So I'm getting there. I have a couple people who now know. So
So is there anything that you did in the first book that now you know not to do anymore?
I think the disconnect a little bit is that, like I said, I started out thinking I was writing a cozy mystery. And so I probably held back. I mean, there is one kind of gory scene in the first book, but then I realize now that I'm just not a cozy mystery writer.
Hmm.
I'm not a, what would you call it? I don't know, worse than that, but hard boiled, I guess they call it. But
You're far closer to hard boiled than you are to cozy.
exactly. And so I probably held back on especially the first one, thinking I was writing a cozy. And so now I think someone might pick that up and say, oh, this is a little too cozy for me and not read the rest of them.
Hmm. Are you familiar with the AMC series called Dark Winds?
No.
I think you'd enjoy it. It's a little different than what you do. It takes place in the Navajo Nation, and
Okay.
the cops are Native American cops,
Hmm.
and it's very well done and a lot of fun to watch. And there's a certain amount of occult like stuff that goes on in it. But it's on the reservation, so
Hmm.
it's out in the wilderness a little bit and out in the
Yeah.
wild. And so I think you would relate to it. It's totally different than your books, but I think you'd relate to it. I think you'd enjoy it.
I'll look it up.
Absolutely.
I read all the Tony Hillerman ones, of course. They're not
Well,
really
it's a
dark.
Tony Hiller. It's based on Tony Hillerman.
Oh, it is.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, and it's produced by Robert Redford and George R. R. Martin
Okay, cool.
of Game of Thrones fame. So, do you have a daily regimen when you write?
Well, I like to get writing at by noon. That's my
By
cutoff.
noon.
So I get up and I'm a morning person. So that's when I'm full of energy. So I get up and do all my chores and run around and get that out of my system. And then my deadline say, okay, at noon I need to sit down and write. So then I don't feel I'm not thinking of all the things I need to do.
You write until you've gotten to those 1,500 words, or is there a time limit?
Just at least till like 5 or 6 o'clock whenever I'm tired, and sometimes I do when I've got something in my mind, I might get up and vacuum or something just while I'm thinking things out. But yeah. So I go from noon to 5 or 6 or whatever. And sometimes if I'm not tired and I've taken too many breaks, and I'll go to later till
Well,
7 or 8.
allegedly, Agatha Christie got all of her great ideas while washing dishes.
I can I can see that. Sometimes just, folding the laundry and I'm thinking something through. Yeah.
Well, I've been having just a fascinating, fun conversation with Kit Karson of the Anderson Chronicles books, and we're going to wind the show down just a little bit at this moment. And just wondering, in all of your experiences at this point, having written 5 books in a couple of years, can you share with us a story that you've gone through that's either weird, quirky, offbeat, strange, or just plain funny?
Actually, I have, and I think this is what triggered me to start writing the mysteries. So a couple years before I started writing, a cousin of mine wanted me to trace the family tree so my maiden name is Anderson, the Anderson Chronicles, a little shout out to the family.
Got
She
it.
wanted me to trace that lineage because we really knew nothing beyond when they came over on the boat from Sweden. And so I started doing that for her, got on ancestry.com and all that. And I kept telling people the most risque thing I'm going to find that anyone in our family ever did was take 2 pieces of pie at the church social. So I was on this newspaper.com looking through newspaper articles because we're from this area. And I found this one, Teresa Franz, who is my great great grandma, and her 2 sons were arrested for murder.
Oh, wow.
So they actually did murder someone, more than one person. And so we went to the courthouse, got all the legal papers and everything that had to do with that. And I was going to write that book. I still am. I keep thinking someday I'm going to write that out because it's fascinating. But they got away with it.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Would you write it as a nonfiction?
Yeah. Because I have all the court papers, I have pictures of these people. Yeah, I have the whole story. And they also got away with murdering at least one other person that we know of.
Wow. And so that's what dragged you into the notion of writing mysteries.
I think so. I didn't think about it before till I was trying to think of a story to tell you. And I went, oh, you know what? That's when I started. At that point, I was traveling around to different hospitals, and it was just too hard to bring all these books and research along with me. And I thought, you know what? I need something that I can just do in my head, you know? So that's why I decided I'll write cozy mysteries.
But they're not cozy mysteries.
They're not that they're not.
It's not cozy mysteries. All right, so I think that's a really interesting story that you have familial relations that are criminals.
Oh, yes, and they went to their grave with everyone knowing they were murderers, but they got away with it.
Wow. Okay. All right. So last question for you today, Kit. You've shared with us a very significant amount of advice along the way in this show, but I'm wondering if you have a single solid piece of advice or a tip that you like to give to anyone who says to you, "What do I do? How do I start?"
I think it's less about the actual writing and more about the attitude and believing in yourself. So the words that I was saying to myself whenever I doubted, I would say, why not me? You go into these stores and you see all these New York Times bestsellers and you think, oh, I can never do that. And then I started saying, why not me? Why not me? They all started somewhere. They all started with their first idea, their first book, their first chapter, their first editor, and finally getting something published. So just tell yourself, why not me? They did it, I can too.
I think that's phenomenal advice because there's so much truth to it. If you walk into any major bookstore, and I'm talking about a bricks and mortar bookstore, you just look
Mhm.
around at all the authors that are in there that you've never heard of, let alone read,
Mhm.
and they all got published somehow, and they have
Mhm.
people that buy their books and read them. So I think that that's a
Yes.
very wise piece of advice. Why not you? Why not me is correct.
Yeah.
Kit Karson, this has been a lot of fun for me to chat with the author of mysteries that you churn out without even knowing where you're going. I think that's tremendous. And I thank you for your time, your energy, and your wisdom today.
Thank you. It's been so much fun.
And so we've come to the end of today's Story Beat. If you like this episode, won't you please take a moment to give us a comment, rating, or review on whatever app or platform you're listening to? Your support helps us bring more great StoryBeat episodes to you. StoryBeat is available on all major podcast apps and platforms, including Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, and many others. Until next time, I'm Steve Cuden, and may all your stories be unforgettable.